Welcome to another episode of Beyond Risk and Back. I have Dr. Joe Sherman with me today, and we are going to discuss being burned out because dealing with these kids, personally or professionally, burns you out. And what I want parents to really understand, what I want all my listeners to understand, is that there are signs of burnout that take time to recover, that you need support to recover from. If you're listening to this show, then I want us to agree on the idea that living with someone who's dealing with mental health issues, addiction issues, trauma, developmental issues, is in and of itself traumatizing for you. And you have to deal with it. Or, as Dr. Sherman is going to talk to us about, your children or your other children will know that you're traumatized and you're parenting from that space. Thank you for listening, liking, subscribing, sharing. And if you love today's episode, please go leave us a review, because that really helps parents find support. My guest today is Dr. Joe Sherman. Dr. Joe, you said you are a pediatrician.
That's right, I am.
How long?
Pediatrician for 35 years. And now I do physician coaching, retreat facilitation for medical teams, nurses, doctors, therapists, everybody that works together individually or in teams.
And you're a father.
Yes, I am father of 3 children. That's correct.
Parent burnout, employee burnout, physician, nurse, caregiver burnout. I was surprised at how intense it was. When I first saw the signs and symptoms, having a staff member melt down after work consistently, still showing up, believing that they had to do this, it matched what I was seeing from parents of kids who were in our treatment program. And that was really the light bulb for me. So what I'm curious, before we jump into the meat and potatoes, what got you into teaching, running retreats, doing the rear guard work of people on the front lines?
I would say mostly because I was that person on the front lines and experiencing all of the things that I'm trying to support my clients with now. When I was in medical school, when I was in college, medical school, there were a lot of things that I thought I wanted to do with my life. One thing I really wanted to do was work with kids. But it was really, I was attracted more to teaching, counseling, even ministry, some way that I could be in relationship with young people at a deeper level. I was kind of also very talented or skilled at science. So putting those things together, it came up with being a pediatrician. I always have thought throughout my entire career that it was still the social worker, counselor, teacher inside of me that I brought to pediatrics that was my superpower, not my medical knowledge, not my prescription writing, not my diagnostic skills, but it was that relationship building. So every time I was in a job, a position where I was able to work in teams and that the primary focus was in relationship building, the time to build relationships, really being present with parents and my coworkers, I thrived. I did really well. And every time I was in a position where it was all about the medicine and churning out the patients and making sure you see the most number of patients in the day, then I sunk, I crashed. And so we as a family lived in Bolivia for 4 years, my wife, myself, and 2 children at the time. And we were there for 4 years and returned. And I tried to plug in to my kind of normal pediatric work here in the US. And I immediately tried to fix everything because I'm a helper, I'm a caregiver, I'm a do-gooder person, and that's what I thrive on. That's what gives me energy and adrenaline. But I was working in a system that was not allowing me to spend the time I needed to make relationship, to work with my staff, to bring them together. It was all about seeing the patients as fast as possible. And so I just crashed. I was already suffering from anxiety. I started to become burned out. I felt misplaced. I felt stuck, like I had nowhere else to go, because this is the way I lived my life. My whole career was based on this. I sought help. I was seeing a therapist. I was getting treatment. I was still going in and hadn't really changed the way I approached the things. And so one day, my psychiatrist that I saw at the time said, next time, bring your wife in. I want to talk to her along with you. And he asked her, how do you think Joe's doing? And she began to break down in tears and said, I'm afraid I'm going to lose him. And I looked at her and I was kind of surprised and shocked, but she was right. She was absolutely right. I had told her at times going into work, life really sucks, but I got to go into work right now. And she just told me that her heart would stop beating until she heard my voice on the other side, that I was okay. When the psychiatrist heard her say that, he turned to me, he said, what do you think? What do you think that you are going to do? And I said, I think I need to quit. And he said, how soon? He said, because if you don't have a plan to do that now, then I would have to step in and make that happen. So let's start making the plan now. So that happened to me in 2012, and I stopped working. My wife, she is a clinical psychologist and was working part-time at a university teaching. She went full-time. I became a stay-at-home dad and really began exploring what it was about my life that brought me joy and what it was that brought me down. As I did this with the help of a lot of people, reading books and really exploring a lot of different aspects of my life, I discovered what those elements were, what those values were that were so important to me, that had been there since before I went to medical school. Then I started to look for jobs and positions that really brought me spaciousness, time with patients and families, interaction with coworkers in a very supportive culture, work environment, and a chance to establish relationships with people in the community and my patients and families that allowed me to thrive and allowed me to be present to them. And I started to want to work with more health professionals to be able to find those same environments of what made them thrive and come alive in healthcare. So that's my story. That's how I got there.
So let's start with the basics, doctor. What is burnout? When we talk about professional burnout, you mentioned anxiety. There's that, pre-experience of anxiety, but then the actual anxiety of having to go to work, like environmental anxiety or situational anxiety, on top of clinical anxiety. But what is going on in the brain? I'm burnt out. If I'm saying that, oh my God, I'm so burnt out. What's happening in my brain chemistry? What's happening in my belly chemistry that's making me feel burnt out?
There is a clinical definition of burnout, and there are three elements to it. One element is emotional exhaustion. It's not just physical exhaustion, it's not just overworking, but feeling emotionally spent, like you just have nothing left in the tank to give. The second is a sense of depersonalization. And depersonalization meaning that I'm sitting there as, say, a physician, and you're the patient, and you're talking to me, and you're explaining your problems, and I'm just like an automaton, just listening and having absolutely no connection, just sitting there taking it in, thinking, oh, when is this person going to leave the room? How long do I have to do this? Just totally disconnected and depersonalized, like you're watching the scene and you're not involved. And then the last is this sense of no impact. You're no benefit to anybody. You're not serving any purpose. That's the kind of, it's the lack of any sense of a compass, a direction, any sense that you're having any effect whatsoever. So you can imagine if you're going in to see a physician, and these days, I would say the statistics show that between 50 to 60% of physicians that people are seeing now actively in practice are clinically burned out. So they're emotionally exhausted, they're depersonalized, they really don't care what you're saying, and they feel like they're not really making a difference anyway. So why are they there?
Is this have to do with being overworked? Is this having something to do with you are ultimately working with a client or a patient that is going to die, even if they get better? Is this a psychological reaction to the nature of the work?
I would say that it's part of it, but it's not the major part of it. And for everybody, there are different reasons why they burn out, I would say. For people who are in healthcare, and I would expand that to helping professions, people who are therapists, people who are social worker, anything like that. I would say that a lot of it has to do with not so much the amount of work. Most of us have put in hours and hours of work, but we've put in hours of work doing things we love, that we're passionate about. We have a certain amount of control and autonomy in how we do that because based on our knowledge, our skills, our experience. So when we are placed in positions where we are forced to do things in ways that are incongruent with our values, our morals, or we are pushed to do more than we think we're capable of doing effectively, or we are asked to do a lot of administrative work, paperwork, administrative work, follow up on all kinds of reports and such that we really didn't receive training to do, then our days are full of all of these things that have absolutely nothing to do with why we went into this field to begin with. And that's what ends up burning people out when they're ending up doing all of these things that have nothing to do with why they're there. And the people who are employing them are not engaging them in trying to solve the issues, in trying to come up with the reasons and the ways we can make things better.
It's amazing because I wanna transition the conversation itself from this professional world to the parent world. The question I have is this: is this a time in concept? And the reason why I ask this is because if a physician is burning out within 2 years and they're working between 8 and 12 hours a day doing their physician's job, then I would imagine that a parent burns out twice as fast because they're working between 12 and 24 hours a day. Is that accurate? Is this a time in thing or is this a resiliency thing?
I wouldn't say resiliency because I believe that there are parents and there are physicians, there are caregivers who are the most resilient people in the world. They have gone through battles and have been able to rise above that and have thrived in the face of adversity, which is resilience, is being able to overcome those types of challenges. However, we are limited in our humanity. We're limited in our human capacity. Our brain is limited in its capacity to handle things. Our adrenal glands are limited in the amount of cortisol that they can release. So we need, by our nature, we need time to recover, rest, recuperate, or else we're not going to have anything left to give anymore. It's a matter of being able to be compassionate for yourself in order for you to be available to other people.
At brabapp.com, I have posted a parenting masterclass. The content is everything I have ever taught a parent in the past 20 years of working with parents in crisis. It's $99. I want every parent to be able to have access to this course. So please go to brabapp.com, B-R-A-B for Beyond Risk and Back. brabapp.com, brabapp.com. Check it out for yourself. I heard a wonderful statement about this where a person was talking to one of my staff and they said, "You're trying to give these kids a drink from your empty cup." So let's talk about some of the recognizable signs and symptoms that a parent might be experiencing that they don't know is a sign of burnout.
I would say the sense of exactly some of the symptoms that you're saying is that when you're involved in parenting activities and you're sitting here going constantly all the time saying, why am I doing this? This is worthless. I just hate being a parent. I don't want to be here. Why is this kid giving me such a hard time? Just all the time. And we all have those feelings, or normal feelings. But when that's all you feel, that's one sign. I would say another sign is when you feel like um, when you're just constantly ruminating and spinning in your head all the time, what's going to go wrong, dreading everything, this constant vigilance that something's going to happen, something's going to happen. And a lot of the parents you're talking about, things have happened. So
before the show, we talked about every time the phone rings. These are parents that their heart rate goes up. They are constantly expecting the worst and constantly afraid of the lowest common denominator that's living in their home.
Absolutely. And when you have no escape from that spinning, from that rumination that's going on and on and on, and you have no escape from it, there's no relief, then you don't sleep. So sleeplessness, you just are awake all the time. You never are able to turn it off. The sleep cycle just never can recharge. You can't recharge at all. You have no interest in interacting with anybody. You have no interest in engaging in things that are normally fun for you anymore because you're constantly distracted by these ruminating negative thoughts all the time, dreading what's going to happen. I'm never good enough. I can never match up to what I expect of myself. All of these parts of you that are telling you, and these voices telling you that you're no good and you really aren't doing a very good job at all.
So now my parents are hearing this voice in their head and they're like, yeah, I could have told you I was burnout. But now what? What's my first step out of burnout? Because I can't stop being a parent.
So this is really explained really well there's a book called Burnout, and it's like on the cover, burnout, 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 burnout. It's as if usually our stress response, we have stressors. Stressors are the things that are constantly bothering us, going on around us that really trigger us. And then we have stress, which is our physical, psychological, spiritual experience in our bodies of that stress. It's that fight, flight, freeze state of mind that keeps us in that constant vigilance. The way we are built, it's like we go through this tunnel. We kind of go down into this sense of getting beaten down and responding and responding. In order to come out of that tunnel, we need to recover. We need to have some downtime to refill our tanks. Otherwise, we're like squeezing our adrenal glands, and we're just not being able to get anything else out of them. So we need to refill our spiritual, physical, emotional, social gas tanks, bank accounts, whatever you want to say. So being able to assess the physical symptoms, what am I feeling like? What is it that I need? So the two questions, what am I feeling and what do I need? And what I need right now may be a walk outside. What I need right now may be to just play with my dog. What I need right now is to sleep, have a hot bath. What I need right now is just nothing, walk away. Those types of things. It could be that what I need right now is I need somebody to whisper in my ear that I am enough, that I am lovable, and that I'm going to be okay and I'm going to make it through this. And in that situation, you can offer yourself the compassion, the same compassion that you have the ability to offer other people and that you've given till there is none left anymore. It's time to start to give it yourself.
So what is an adrenal? This is a term a lot of people use and it's popular and there's lots of books about your adrenal system and repairing your adrenals. What is an adrenal?
Sure. The adrenal glands, the reason that they're called adrenals is adrenal. Renal means kidney. So they're added on to the kidney. So you have kidneys on both sides, kind of, if you reached in your back and you kind of put your thumbs on your paraspinal muscles on both sides of the bottom of your back, right inside of there are your kidneys on each side. Right on top, like little caps, like little hats on top of your kidneys are the adrenal glands. And they're kind of shaped in a triangular cupped shape sitting right on top of your kidneys. Your adrenal glands release two primary hormones. One is cortisol, and the other is epinephrine, like a release of adrenaline. Cortisol is something that helps you become awake, alert, present to the moment. And adrenaline, epinephrine is something that helps you act to increase your heart rate, to increase your respiratory rate, increase the blood flow to your brain because it gets you ready for that fight flight response. So those are your adrenal glands. They only have a certain limited capacity that if they're overdrawn, then they're not going to be able to give you any more. So what happens to many people who become stressed and burned out is that they have no more cortisol to give. It's all empty. So they have to rest. They have to refill. They have to give their bodies a chance to recover. If they don't, then they end up being depressed, blapped out, totally exhausted on the ground or sick, physically sick.
How important it is kind of dawning on us in the same way of how important trauma and how deeply it affects us. That's number one. But number two, I was going to ask, is that when we're out, is that when our body literally says, that's it, you have a cold and you're down and out and you're forced to rest?
Absolutely. If you think about, I know for myself, given that I was raised in this big family as the youngest of 7 kids, and the parents, a father that worked for the post office, and mother was raising the 7 kids at home, and it was just this constant, everybody's got to help. You got to keep working. You got to pull your weight. And in order to get kind of noticed, like, hello, I'm here, but you had to kind of perform, do something, get good grades, do something, you have to like show up. If you don't, then there's somebody else that needs my attention right now. What can happen is that in order to get that attention, our bodies are smart. Our bodies, they say in trauma, your body keeps the score. Your body does not lie. Your brain can lie to you till the end of the earth. I'll tell you, it can tell you, sure, you can do more than that. Yeah, you're good enough. Keep going. What's your problem? Or you're too weak. What, you rest? Are you kidding me? Oh yeah, your thoughts can just, they can destroy you. But your body is never going to lie to you. And you can ignore it. You can ignore it till the end, but it will get you. And your immune system is destroyed if you do not rest. Give yourself the attention, the food, the rest, the exercise you need, and you will get physically sick. And then, I don't know about you, but for me, I will tell you that if I'm sick and it's like, okay, I'm really sick, I can't deny it anymore. It's like the only time that I will allow other people to take care of me. It's like, okay, all right, I will, okay, because I'm sick, I deserve it. I'm sick, right? Because I had this surgery, I had this operation. It's kind of like, wow, okay, I'm in pain and I can't stand it. It's really hard, and I was like, but now I deserve to be actually loved and taken care of. Otherwise, I'm on guard. I gotta work.
Maybe I meet that momentary experience. I acknowledge what my body's going through. Now what? What do the next weeks and months look like if I am truly going to mitigate, address, and heal this burnout?
There was a lot of inner talking that was going on for me that I need to be there. I have to be there. I'm indispensable. So for me as a physician, there was a lot that I was telling myself of, this is the way, almost like I was addicted to the work. This was my hit. This was my affirmation. This was my validation that I am worthy, that I am worth something because I am able to do such good things for other people. Now, if I'm left without that, then where do I get that self-worth? Where do I get that feeling like I am lovable regardless of what I do? Or I am lovable even in spite of what I do? That is the key, is to be able to separate your worthiness, your lovability from this idea of performing something. And that is really difficult to do if that's the way we've been raised and formed.
You have addressed right out of the gate there. One of the most difficult things to say to a parent is that there is a payoff to this burnout that you're getting. There's a payoff to you feeling like you can't give your child any of their problems back. You have to handle all the stuff, even though you didn't sign up for it. You hate doing it. But by God, there's a validation, an addiction, a compulsion to keep this going, that this relationship that you are in, this dysfunctional relationship that you are in with your child, is 50% your responsibility and 50% theirs. As a parent, you have to figure out how to step out. I'm not saying you abandon your child who's in life and limb. You can't, but you do not have to be addicted to this anymore. God, it's so hard to say that. And I've had to say that to some parents. You're getting fulfilled, full and filled through this dysfunction somehow, or you wouldn't do it. And until you address that part, you're going to repeat some really effed up patterns.
Now, the issue with that is that even though that's true, there is the first reaction to that I have and that a lot of people would have is shame, is that you go, oh my God, or maybe anger. How could you say such a thing? That's ridiculous. And then inside, it's like, oh my God, is that true? Oh. And so and if you go into shame, that's no help for your kid or you or anybody else, right? So shame, as you go through that, it's a normal emotion. We all go through that because we don't think we're matching up. The difference between guilt and shame is that guilt means that I'm a good person that happened to screw up. Shame means I screwed up, therefore I am a miserable person. I am worthless. So shame is your identity, guilt is an action and an emotion as a result. So shame is the bottom of the bottom. But it's something we all experience. But shame actually, that experience of shame on the other side of the coin, as psychologist Chris Germer from Mindful Self-Compassion would say, the other side of that is the desire to be loved. And we feel shame because we really have this desire to be loved. And what we've learned is that we find love through this action, through this constant giving, 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 being there, caring, everything else. When we have to realize, I have to realize everything I say, I'm saying to myself every day, actually, I have to realize that I am worthy of love and can give myself that love and care and compassion and can ask other people for it independent of what I do, merely because we all deserve it. And that when we are able to get it and we feel that sense of love and compassion, then we can escape the shame feeling. We can get it without having to earn it, constantly doing all the time. We can actually place our hands on our hearts and say to ourselves, it's okay. It's okay. May I love myself just the way I am. May I believe and understand that I am worthy of this love. It's okay. It's going to be okay. Or if we need to reach out to someone who we know is going to be there for us and can tell us that, and not so much, come on, shape up, you're better than this, but to say, I am so sorry. I can tell that this is really, really hard for you. And I love you no matter what. That's what we're looking for.
What is it? What's your Facebook handles, your social media, everything? How are parents going to find you and follow up with you after this episode?
Well, I have a website. It's very simple, joeshermanmd.com. So it's my name, MD at the end.com. I don't have a lot of other social media other than LinkedIn. I am on LinkedIn. Also, Joe Sherman, MD. You can look me up in those areas. But on my website, I have my email, which is joe@joeshermanmd.com. And also the ability to reach me through that, through the website.
All right. So final question to wrap up the show. I find myself in the zone with my healing. What's my best long-term maintenance strategy for not going back to burnout?
I would say that there are a few strategies. One is develop a practice, a reflective practice, whatever that might be. Some people use mindfulness. Some people use meditation, self-compassion. Some people walk out in nature, whatever it is that works for you. Something that you feel restores your physical, emotional, spiritual tanks, social, whatever it might be. So when you find that practice, then try to be as consistent as you can at keeping up that practice. And you may not be able to spend an hour doing it. It may just be 5 minutes doing it. But whatever it is that works for you, try as best you can to do it. Gratitude. Gratitude is one of the things that helps us get through so much. So just at the end of the night, at the end of the day, as you go to bed, if you can come up with 3 things you're grateful for, that's it. Just 3 things. And it doesn't have to be anything earth shattering. Boy, I am grateful that the sun shined today. I am grateful that I got a chance to have a hamburger today. That was awesome. I am grateful that my dog sat with me and just made me feel great once again. Whatever it is that you're grateful for, this starts to cultivate inside of you neural pathways that start to look at more positive things. So, and you can have an accountability partner where all you do is send a text with your 3 things every day. It's like, and just put those 3 things, and that your accountability partner will send you 3 things. So these are all just very simple things that you can do in the long run. And then, probably the most important, when you don't do it, that you forgive yourself for that and you're compassionate to yourself. And you say, we all screw up sometimes. I'm only human and I'll be okay anyway.
I want to thank Deepen Productions for making sure this podcast sounds right. I want to thank all my parents, teachers, and clinicians who listen and share this podcast with people who are struggling and passing on our experts like Dr. Joe Sherman. Make sure you go to joeshermanmd.com and follow up with him. Parents, remember to take care of yourselves first, your adult relationships second, and your children third. Because that's how we're going to do our best work with our children. And parents, if you are burnt out, it's okay. You get help, get support. You'll be okay. It's going to take time. You need to go heal, and you'll be okay. I'll see you next week on Beyond Risk and Back.